quick like and subscribe if you enjoy my content. My name is Blake. I'm 35 years old, and I work as a corporate attorney for a law firm in Seattle, Washington. I spend my days negotiating contracts, identifying liabilities, and protecting my clients from making mistakes they can't take back. I understand consequences, timing, and the importance of controlling the narrative. I never thought I'd need to use those skills at my own wife's birthday party. But when someone introduces their affair partner as their cousin to a room full of mutual friends, and you're standing 10 feet away watching it happen, you have a choice. You can cause a scene, or you can wait for the perfect moment. I chose to wait. And what happened next was the most satisfying 3 minutes of my professional life. I met Julia 8 years ago at a legal conference in Portland. She was working as an events coordinator for a hospitality company, charming and social in ways I wasn't. I was the serious attorney, more comfortable with contracts than cocktail parties. We balanced each other. We got married 6 years ago, bought a house in the Ballard neighborhood of Seattle, a renovated Craftsman with a view of the Sound. Julia continued in event planning, eventually moving to a larger firm that handled corporate events and private parties. I made partner at my firm. Combined income around $280,000. We were successful, stable, building the life we wanted. For 5 years, everything worked. We had our routines, our social circle, our shared goals. We talked about kids eventually, maybe after Julia's career was more established. Then about a year ago, things started changing. Julia's work hours increased dramatically. More evening events, more weekend conferences, more last-minute client emergencies. Event planning had always been demanding, but the frequency had intensified. Big account, she'd explain. Tech company doing a series of product launches. It's consuming my life, but the commission will be worth it. I supported it. Demanding careers require sacrifices. I understood that, but other things changed too. Julia became more secretive with her phone, more protective of her schedule, more vague about which events she was working on and who she was working with. How was the event tonight? I'd ask when she got home at 11 p.m. Long, exhausting. I'm going to shower and crash. She'd shower immediately after coming home from these events. Every single time. Then go straight to bed, too tired to talk. The physical intimacy between us decreased significantly. We went from regular connection to occasional to rare. I'm just burned out, she'd say. This job is taking everything I have. I noticed she'd started dressing differently for work. More attention to her appearance, nicer outfits, expensive new clothes I didn't recognize. New dress. I'd ask, got on sale. Need to look professional for these high-end clients. Her social media activity changed. She'd always been active on Instagram, posting about events she'd planned, sharing photos from work. But she'd started being more careful about what she shared. Fewer photos, more generic captions, nothing that revealed too much detail. The classic signs were all there. I'd heard enough stories from divorced colleagues, read enough articles. But I told myself I was being paranoid. Julia was just busy, stressed, going through a demanding work phase. Then, 3 weeks ago, Julia mentioned her birthday party. I'm turning 32, she said. I want to do something fun. Maybe a party at that new rooftop bar downtown? Invite our friends. Make it a real celebration. Sound great. What can I do to help? Actually, I've got it covered. It's literally my job to plan events. Just show up and enjoy yourself. You sure? I'm happy to help with logistics. No, I want to do this. It'll be fun to plan something for myself instead of a client. Over the next 3 weeks, Julia threw herself into planning her birthday party. She'd talk about the guest list, the catering, the music, the decorations. She was excited in a way I hadn't seen her excited about anything in months. The guest list was a mix of her work colleagues, our mutual friends, and a few of my attorney friends she'd gotten to know over the years. About 50 people total. Will your family be there? I asked. My sister's coming. My parents are out of town that weekend, unfortunately, but it'll still be a good crowd. The party was scheduled for a Saturday evening. Julia spent all day getting ready. Hair appointment, nails, new dress, professional makeup. She looked stunning. You look incredible, I told her. Thanks. I want a night to be perfect. We arrived at the rooftop bar around 7. The space was beautiful. String lights, view of the Seattle skyline, a private section reserved for Julia's party. Guests started arriving shortly after. I played my role, greeted friends, made small talk, congratulated Julia, acted like the supportive husband celebrating his wife's birthday. Around 8 p.m., Julia was standing near the bar with a group of her work colleagues. I was across the room talking to my friend Marcus about a case we were both following. I saw a man approach Julia. Tall, probably early 30s, well-dressed in a way that suggested money and taste. He had flowers, a beautiful bouquet of peonies, Julia's favorite. Julia's face lit up when she saw him. She hugged him, a long hug, longer than professional, longer than friendly. When they separated, she kept her hand on his arm. I watched from across the room as she introduced him to the group she was standing with. I couldn't hear the conversation, but I could read body language. The way she looked at him, the way he looked at her, the comfortable intimacy between them. I excused myself from Marcus and moved closer, positioning myself near a pillar where I could hear but not be obviously watching. Julia's voice carried across the noise of the party. Everyone, this is my cousin Travis. He just moved to Seattle from California. Travis, these are some of my colleagues from the firm. Cousin. She'd introduced him as her cousin. Except Julia didn't have a cousin named Travis. She had 2 cousins total, both female, both living in the Midwest. I'd met her entire extended family at our wedding. Travis shook hands with Julia's colleagues, played the part perfectly. Charming, friendly, the kind of guy who fits seamlessly into any social situation. How long are you in town? One of Julia's coworkers asked. Permanently, Travis said. Just got transferred here for work. Julia's been showing me around, helping me get settled. That's so nice of her, the coworker said. Family helping family. Julia smiled, nodded, perpetuated the lie without hesitation. I stood there 20 feet away, watching my wife introduce her boyfriend, because that's obviously what he was, as her cousin to a group of people who had no reason to question it. The audacity was almost impressive. I could have confronted her right then. Could have walked over, called her out in front of everyone, made a scene. But I'm an attorney. I understand timing, strategy, and the importance of control in the room. So I waited. I watched Julia and Travis interact over the next hour. The touches that lasted too long. The private jokes. The way they gravitated toward each other, even when talking to other people. I watched Travis bring Julia a drink without being asked, knowing exactly what she wanted. I watched her lean into him when they talked, her body language screaming intimacy. And I watched our mutual friends accept him as her cousin without question. Because why would Julia lie at her own birthday party, in front of her husband, surrounded by people who knew her? Around 9:30, Julia gathered everyone for a toast. She stood at the center of the rooftop space, glass of champagne in hand, Travis standing slightly behind her. Thank you all so much for coming tonight, she said. It means the world to me to be surrounded by the people I care about most. This past year has been transformative for me, personally and professionally. I've grown in ways I never expected, and I'm excited about what comes next. She looked directly at Travis when she said that last part. He smiled back. So here's to new beginnings, Julia continued. To growth, to living authentically, to being brave enough to pursue what makes you happy. Everyone raised their glasses. Cheers. I raised mine too. Caught Julia's eye across the room. She smiled at me. The smile of someone who thought they were getting away with everything. That's when I made my move. I walked to the center of the space where Julia was standing. The crowd was still loosely gathered from the toast. Julia, I said, loud enough for nearby people to hear. That was a beautiful toast. Mind if I add something? She looked surprised, but pleased. Of course, honey. I turned to face the crowd. Approximately 50 people, all watching, drinks in hand. I want to thank Julia for including me in this celebration, I began. We've been married for 6 years, and I've watched her grow and change in incredible ways. She's absolutely right that this past year has been transformative. I paused. Let that sink in. Several people smiled, thinking this was a sweet husband moment. I particularly appreciated meeting the new people in Julia's life, I continued. Her expanding social circle. The colleagues she's gotten close to. The friends who've become such an important part of her world. Julia's smile, was starting to look uncertain. For example, I said, turning to look at Travis. Travis here. Julia introduced him as her cousin. But here's an interesting thing about family. I actually know Julia's family pretty well. We had a wedding, see? 6 years ago. Her whole family was there. The room was getting quieter. People were starting to sense something was off. And I distinctly remember Julia has exactly 2 cousins. Both female. Both named Michelle and Jennifer. Both living in Minnesota and Wisconsin respectively. I looked directly at Travis. Neither named Travis. Neither male. Neither recently moved to Seattle from California. Travis's face had gone pale. Julia's face had gone red. So I'm a little confused. I continued, voice pleasant and conversational. Because either Julia's family tree just sprouted a new branch I wasn't aware of, or I paused for effect. Travis isn't actually her cousin. The silence was deafening. Blake, Julia started. I held up a hand. Let me finish. Because this is important. I turned back to the crowd. I'm Blake, by the way. Julia's husband. The one who's been at home while she's been working late on all those events. The one who paid for half of this party we're currently at. The one who, until about 10 minutes ago, thought his wife was just really dedicated to her career. I looked at Travis. Travis, was it? I'm going to go out on a limb here and guess you're not just a family friend. Would you like to tell everyone how you really know Julia? Or should she? Travis looked at Julia. Julia looked at the floor. Our friend Sarah, one of Julia's college friends, spoke up from the crowd. Julia, what is he talking about? Julia's voice was small. Blake, please. Not here. Not now. Not here. I said, you brought your boyfriend to your birthday party and introduced him as your cousin in front of 50 people, including your actual husband. I think here and now is exactly the right time for honesty. I turned back to the crowd. For anyone wondering, Travis is not Julia's cousin. Based on the way they've been interacting all evening, the touches, the private jokes, the intimate body language, I'm going to assume he's the reason Julia has been working late 3 to 4 nights a week for the past year. The reason she showers the moment she gets home. The reason our marriage has been falling apart while she's been pursuing what makes her happy. Julia was crying now. I was going to tell you. When? After the party? After you'd successfully introduced your boyfriend to all our friends under a fake identity? After you'd made me look like a fool in front of everyone we know? Travis finally spoke. Look, man, I think we should talk about this privately. Oh, now you want privacy? I said, that's interesting. Because you seem pretty comfortable being introduced as family in a public space. Seemed pretty comfortable holding my wife's hand when you thought no one was paying attention. Seemed pretty comfortable bringing her peonies, her favorite flower, which you knew because you know her better than someone who just moved to town would. I pulled out my phone. Actually, while we're being honest in front of everyone, let me share something I discovered yesterday. I'd done my research. Once I'd heard Julia mention Travis's name in passing a few weeks ago, before I'd known who he was. I'd looked him up, found his LinkedIn, his Instagram, his entire digital presence. I pulled up his Instagram on my phone and turned it to show the crowd. This is Travis's Instagram. Travis Brennan, by the way, not Travis the cousin. Travis the marketing consultant who Julia's company has been working with on that big tech account she mentioned. I scrolled to a photo from 6 months ago. Travis and Julia at a restaurant, sitting very close, intimate lighting. His caption, best dinners with the best company. Glowing star. I scrolled to another. 3 months ago. Travis and Julia hiking, her leaned into him. Caption, PNW adventures with my favorite person. I scrolled to one more. 2 weeks ago. Julia wearing the necklace I'd noticed recently, but hadn't asked about. Caption, when she wears the gift you picked out perfectly. Red heart. I held up my phone so the crowd could see. So just to be clear, Julia's cousin has been posting couple photos with my wife for at least 6 months. While I've been at home thinking she's working late. The room was completely silent except for Julia's crying. I pocketed my phone and looked at Julia. I filed for divorce yesterday. You'll be served with papers on Monday. My attorney has screenshots of all of Travis's social media posts, plus the receipts I found for the hotels you've been charging to your credit card, plus the text messages I recovered from our cell phone account, showing approximately 4,000 texts between you two over the past year. Julia's eyes went wide. You've been investigating me? I'm an attorney, Julia. When I suspect fraud, I gather evidence. This is what evidence looks like. I looked at Travis. Travis, you should probably know that Washington is not a no-fault divorce state. We have legal separation that requires proof of adultery, which I have, extensively documented. Travis had started backing away. I didn't know she was going to. I thought she was going to tell you. Save it, I said. You posted couple photos publicly while she was married. You knew exactly what you were doing. I turned to address the room one final time. I apologize to everyone here who came to celebrate Julia's birthday and got this instead. The drinks are paid for through midnight. Please stay, enjoy yourselves. As for me, I have a marriage to legally end. I set down my champagne glass, looked at Julia one last time, and walked toward the exit. Behind me, I heard the explosion of conversation. People talking over each other, asking questions, the sound of Julia trying to explain herself to a room full of people who just watched her lie get dismantled in real time. I took the elevator down and walked to my car. My hands were shaking, not from anger, but from adrenaline. I just confronted my wife's affair in the most public way possible, in front of 50 people, at her own birthday party. I sat in my car for a moment before starting the engine. My phone started buzzing immediately. Text from friends at the party. Marcus, holy shit, man. Are you okay? Sarah, I had no idea. I'm so sorry. That took guts. David, that was the most epic thing I've ever witnessed. You need anything? I responded to Marcus. I'm okay. Going home. Thanks for being there. I drove home to our house in Ballard. The house we bought together. The house Julia wouldn't be coming back to tonight, or any night. While I got home, I called my attorney. Her name was Patricia Walsh, one of the best divorce attorneys in Seattle. Patricia, it's Blake Chun. Blake, how did it go? Exactly as we discussed. I confronted her at the party, in front of witnesses. Made the affair public knowledge. She can't deny it now. Good. That strengthens our case significantly. Public admission, witnessed by dozens of people. Her credibility is destroyed. How are you holding up? Surprisingly okay. It felt good to control the narrative for once. That's the attorney in you. You understand that information is power, and you just seized all of it. The divorce moved quickly after that. Julia hired an attorney, a man named Robert Chun, no relation, who tried to argue that I'd humiliated her unnecessarily by confronting her at the party. Patricia shut that down immediately. Your client brought her affair partner to a public event and introduced him under a false identity to mutual friends, including her husband. Mr. Blake merely corrected the false information. If she's embarrassed, it's because her own deception was exposed. Julia tried to claim the affair had only been emotional, not physical. Patricia presented the hotel receipts. 6 months of hotel charges, all local Seattle hotels, all on nights Julia had claimed to be working late. Julia tried to claim she deserved half the house. Patricia pointed out that I'd paid 80% of the down payment from premarital funds and had made 70% of the mortgage payments. Washington's community property law had exceptions, and this fell under one. Julia tried to claim she needed spousal support. Patricia presented evidence that Julia had spent thousands of dollars on her affair, hotel rooms, gifts for Travis, dinners and trips while married. A court was unlikely to award support to someone who'd misused marital resources. We settled after 8 weeks. I kept the house. Julia got 30% of our joint savings to account for her smaller contributions. No spousal support for either party. Clean break. 6 years of marriage. Ended because she'd introduced her boyfriend as her cousin and I'd corrected the record. I heard through mutual friends what happened after the party. Julia and Travis tried to make a real relationship work. It lasted 2 months. Turns out the excitement of a secret affair doesn't translate well to actual partnership when everyone knows about it and judges you for it. Travis apparently got tired of being known as the guy who helped Julia blow up her marriage. He moved back to California after his contract with Julia's firm ended. Julia left the event planning firm, was quietly pushed out after the party became notorious in Seattle's corporate event circles. Started freelancing, lost most of her social circle, since they'd witnessed the confrontation and sided with me. She tried to reach out about 6 months after the divorce finalized. A long email about mistakes and humiliation and how I'd ruined her life by exposing her at the party. I read it once and forwarded it to Patricia with a note for the file in case she tries anything. Then I deleted it. Because here's what I learned. When someone disrespects you publicly, they're counting on you to be too polite, too shocked, or too embarrassed to respond. Julia brought Travis to her birthday party and called him her cousin because she thought I'd either not be there or wouldn't notice or wouldn't say anything if I did notice. She miscalculated. She forgot she was married to an attorney who understands that controlling the narrative matters. That public lies require public corrections. That timing is everything. I stayed in the house, kept my partnership at the firm, rebuilt my social life without Julia in it. About a year after the divorce, I started dating again. Met someone named Amanda at a legal conference. Ironically, the same type of event where I'd met Julia 8 years earlier. Amanda was a corporate litigator. Sharp, direct, no games. On our third date, she asked about my divorce. My ex-wife brought her boyfriend to her birthday party and introduced him as her cousin. I introduced myself as her husband, in front of 50 people. Amanda's eyes widened. You confronted her at her own party? She lied in front of 50 people, including me. I just corrected the lie. That's either brutal or brilliant. It was necessary. She was controlling the narrative by hiding behind a fake identity. I took the narrative back. Amanda nodded slowly. How did it feel? Terrifying in the moment, satisfying afterward, and absolutely the right move strategically. You sound like a litigator. I think like one. When someone commits fraud in public, you expose it in public. Otherwise, they control the story. We've been together for over a year now. Amanda has never introduced me as anything other than exactly what I am. Her boyfriend, then her partner, now her fiancé. No fake identities. No hidden relationships. No lies in front of crowds. Just honesty, which, it turns out, is a lot easier to live with. She introduced her boyfriend as her cousin at a party. I introduced myself as her husband. And in those 3 minutes, I dismantled 6 months of lies in front of everyone who mattered. Some people said I was cruel, that I should have confronted her privately, that humiliating her publicly was unnecessary. But those people weren't the ones who'd been lied to for a year, weren't the ones who'd watched their wife bring another man to a party and introduce him under a fake identity, weren't the ones who had to decide in that moment whether to be complicit in the lie or expose it. I chose exposure. I chose truth. I chose to take back the narrative she'd been controlling through deception. And I'd make the same choice again, because lies told publicly require public corrections, and consequences delivered publicly are the ones that actually stick.